Okay. I know. Everyone thought I was the passing of James was incorrectly stated. I'm still here. I've been off the internet since Friday afternoon. Can you believe it? Never sure exactly why. But I connected up my Ghost virtual private network. I see it right down there. Let's see if I... no, I can't show it to you there. Let's show it to you here. Save my butt. There it is. Ghost. See? Ghost. Yellow is beautiful. When you have your virtual private network. It really is. I mean, I tried virtual private networks out a few years ago. And, maybe 4 years ago. On my iPads. Not on the MacBook, on iPads. And it slowed it down, The downloads took a while to connect. The connections are slow. It slowed down your throughput. It like squeezed your hose. I think of the internet activity like a hose. If you have a really good connection, you have a nice fat hose, like a fire hose. If you don't have a very good internet connection, it's like having one of those half-inch hoses that you have connected to your faucet and you're trying to hose off your driveway and there just isn't a lot of water coming out of that hose. You need a 3/4-inch hose, which makes a world of a difference when you're trying to hose off your driveway. Yeah. Well, the internet is similar. So think of your internet connectivity like a hose. So there's a little application known as speed test. See up in the very top, speed test. Well, it's right where the banner is, where the 3 dots are. Speed test. Let's see what those 3 dots. Let's go. No, I guess that's. So it's asking me. Now remember, iPads are touchscreen. So it wants me to touch go. Here we go. Let's see what's. Yeah. There you go. Hit go. And now it's connecting. The ping is 28 milliseconds. It's like a ping when you're in a submarine where it goes boing, and the sound ricochets back against the hull of the ship. 28 milliseconds is, it's better than 40 milliseconds. Anyway, 220 megabits per second down is adequate. 37 megabits per second up is what I need. The jitter is 18. That's not so good, but acceptable. Anyway, that's with the virtual private network. It goes in the very top. Let's see, can we see that? On the very top of my screen is a little square that says VPN. Yeah. Anyway, virtual private networks. today are fast. Ghost. I have no financial connection with Ghost, other than the fact I heard about it from an unremembered source. I forget how I heard about Ghost. I think it was one of these guys that covers SpaceX launches. I've been out of commission since Friday. Give me a break. And they were advertising it, and you give them a shout out, or but they have some high-speed cameras hooked up to when SpaceX launches its test rockets from Boca Chica, Texas. Yeah. Anyway, that one of those guys was, they do a podcast, and every 10 minutes they subject themselves to some advertising, so they get advertising money. And so that's how I heard about Ghost. And it has that yellow, and if you can see it, you can sort of see it in the very, in this very corner right here. If you've got a real high resolution connection. GHOST. You can Google it. Let's Google it, see what happens. I'll Google it here, because it's worthwhile. There it is, right there. You see Ghost? Cyber Ghost. Excuse me, Cyber Ghost. You pay like, it's $6, $8, $10 a month. I forget. There's an annual. I think I signed up for an annual charge, which turns out to be $6 a month or something like that. But what it does is it prevents anybody that may try to be hacking you, from getting into your MAC address and sneaking in through your internet connection. So it keeps moving the MAC address around so that the bad guys can't tell, where you're at. And by the time they figure out where you're at, Ghost switches it to some other, MAC address. And I'm connected to CyberGhost, Miami, United States, using the WireGuard protocol, whatever that means. I'm not really clear about, but you see the yellow? Yellow is their sign. So when you see that nice circular yellow with the on-off switch thing in the middle, that means you're good. Meaning CyberGhost, meaning that my Xfinity connection that's coming through the modem, and then the modem distributes the Wi-Fi signal to all my devices in my giant facility here. being a smart guy. But, I got, 5 or 6 different devices. Marilyn, she's got 2 devices. So there's 8, I think, resident devices here. A couple old iPads, a couple of new iPads. I keep swapping out selling equipment and swapping out for updated. I'm up to M3 chips. I don't think I have anything with an M4 chip. Let's check out this guy. See what kind of chip he's got. About. Sorry, excuse me. I have a 13-inch iPad Pro with an M4 chip. See, how do I get to show you that? Producers, help me. There it is. You see M4 right underneath iOS version 18.4. It says iPad 13-inch Pro M4. That's coming right out of the system. That's what Apple chose to name this device. iPad Pro 13-inch, because you don't like to use the inch marks, when you're because it's a special character, M4 in brackets, which is the translation for MVXW3LL. God knows how they come up with that nomenclature. And I've got a serial number there, ending in 66B. Anyway, CyberGhost, I have 1 terabyte of storage capacity, and I have 341 gigabytes left, which is, oh my God. So I'm using 2/3 of my internet connectivity. And why is that? Because I have, about 100,000 photos resident on the iPad. Yeah, I take a lot of pictures. There I am, right there. So, anyway, oh gosh, I don't know what happened, but as of Friday, I have not been able to get my computer to get online. So I couldn't transmit. It kept saying it won't connect with the server. What server? The internet server, you fool. No, my iPads were connecting, but not the computer. And I need a MacBook, to get online. Now here's so the left. Okay, you got the left, and you got the right, and then you got people in the middle. I'm right of middle. I like to think of myself as right of the middle, which basically means we live in a supposedly the best industrialized country on the planet. We should be able to help people that actually need help. I don't believe in helping people that don't need help when they're just lazy. That's not my idea of help. That means there are a lot of people out there trying to take advantage of all us people that want to help the people that really need help. So here you got Elon Musk decides that one of the main reasons that he was backing Trump is he was the only one of the 2 major candidates, and there wasn't any minor candidates, who basically was saying, if we don't change the way we're doing things, we're going to cease to be. In other words, we'll go through whatever the countrywide version is of bankruptcy, because we got more expenses than we have income, and there's only so much taxes you can take away from people. You make a lot of money, you're going to give up about 1/3 of your income. You shouldn't have to give up more than 1/3 of your income. Come on. Half the country pays no federal tax anyway, because of the way in which the liberals have styled. I mean, it's one thing when everyone pays a little piece. 2% of nothing is still, nothing, so to speak. And 2% of a lot of money is a lot of money. But there's, this whole thing about fair share. Bupkis. What the hell is that? That means nothing. That's liberal speak for I'm going to take all the money I can possibly get out of your pocket. Well, that's no way to run a government. Yeah, hey, the senators, they want to get their salaries. You think they're gonna? Yeah, I think I won't take a raise this time. Yeah. Now here's Elon Musk. He's the schmuck of the month, right? So here this guy with his 7 or 8 other really good business people. Elon Musk is a big picture guy. Back in the early days, he got his hands dirty, so to speak. He was crawling underneath the automobiles, checking things out. Now he's got over 100,000 employees spread across SpaceX, and which I think has 40,000 employees. Actually, I don't know what the head count is, but he's got over 100,000 employees between the two. I think that's probably a fair statement. You can Google it if you want to know exactly. But because of that, he's made a lot of friends. So he's a big picture guy. He waves his hands around, says, let's try this, let's try that. He's read a lot about a lot of things, and he's very capable, big picture thinker. And then he's got a building full of engineers that can make it happen, so to speak. So he says, gosh, we need another 5% energy on our Raptor engines. Let's turn up this and turn down that. How do you think that would be? And then the engineers say, well, if we do that, we're going to melt the firing chamber. Well, come up with a new metal that won't melt. Yeah, I mean that's the kind of big picture thinking he will do, of course. And I'm sure I've never sat around a room full of his engineers while he's conversing back and forth with them, but he's running around doing a lot of things. He can't, sleep in the warehouse anymore. On a couch. So here's this guy, because he's wired with all his, how about the guy who invented Airbnb? That's pretty sharp, shrewd character that came up with Airbnb, which basically means anybody that has a spare bedroom, in a sense, in the basement, can take pictures of the local neighborhood, take pictures of the nice little apartment they made downstairs. You have your own private egress and ingress, whatever the features are of your extra bedroom. Or let's say you have a duplex. You can rent out the other half of the duplex, put it on Airbnb. You get seasonal rates, off-season rates, lobster season, and, up northeast. You can rent out your bedroom for, $150 a night. And you don't have to stay in a fancy schmancy hotel for $250 a night. Just watch out for those hidden cameras. That'd give you the willies, wouldn't it? You got some dirty old man next door watching you. You take off your underwear pants. Let them look. I don't care. Ladies, you wear your towel when you get out of the bathroom shower. Anyway, so he's got some economists. He's got some, real good CPAs. He's got 7 or 8 that he had on Bret Baier's show 2 weeks ago, Thursday night. Thursday was like part 1. Friday evening at 6 p.m. on Fox was like part 2. While Bret Baier is interviewing Elon Musk. Gave up, an hour. It was recorded, and they split it up into half on Thursday night and half on Friday night, I think, and edited out some, wasted airtime in between when they recorded this hour or so with Elon Musk, who's a relatively busy guy. He's anyway. So I grew up in my early days, Jamaica, Queens, not far from where President Trump, Donald Trump, the son, Frederick was the papa. The house that he grew up in was a relatively modest 2-story house, single-family detached house on the northwestern Jamaica, Queens. At 0 to 10, I was about 8 or 10 blocks away from where he grew up. And then my parents decided to go east, young people. 70 years ago, they decided to go out in a place called East Hills, Roslyn Heights, North Shore of Long Island, right near Roslyn Harbor. Graduated from Roslyn High School, went to Roslyn Middle School, went to Roslyn Elementary School, I guess. Yeah. 2nd, 3rd grade, 4th grade, maybe. Yeah. I wasn't exactly Mr. Academic. I remember in 3rd grade, principal would call my mother and, Jimmy needs some help in reading. So, see, spot, jump. Come on, give me something interesting to read. So I said, Mama, you want me to read? Take me to the candy store. Well, back when I was a little whippersnapper, a candy store is where people bought their tobacco products, and little whippersnippers like me could get a candy bar if you had a nickel. I think, you got a really nice chocolate candy bar if you had a dime, and you get bubble gum cards, the little trading cards with your favorite baseball player on it. And people that bought that year after year and collected those cards made a fortune selling those cards today. Oh my God, you got Mickey Mantle, you got this, you save all these cards. I had a box full of cards. I don't know where they went. Somewhere in all my stuff is, I don't know, I wasn't big, probably not. I probably just ate the bubble gum and gave the cards to somebody else. I was interested in taking things apart. I said, okay, Mom, let's go to the candy store. This is what I want to read. Popular science. It was like a whole bunch of popular magazines. Popular photography. Yes. Popular science. So I got those 2 magazines. And I would read them over and over and over. Oh my God. I wear those magazines out until next month. I said, Mama, let's go to the candy store. I'd get 2 new popular photography, popular science. They came out with more populars as time went on, but those are my 2 go-to magazines. Yeah. Popular electronics. Yeah. Learned how to take apart a TV. A black and white TV, of course. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how I learned to read. Then I started reading the encyclopedia, because you never could tell, You just start at the A and go to the B and go to the C. A was, it was about that thick, World Book. B was the thicker one. Letter S was really big, thick. Yeah. All kinds of S words. But that's how you end up with some intellectual capacity. That's like working out your brain. You read stuff that you have to think twice about. It's like weightlifting. It's like swimming practice, but you don't have to get wet. And it exercises the muscle between your ears, as I think my mother or father or both used to say. Come on, Jimmy, exercise the muscles between your ears. They meant your brain. So, reading is one of the best ways. And language skills when you're young. We were like at least bilingual as kids, right up until I was like 12. And, we used to sing French songs at dinner time. Who does that? My mother was fluent in a few languages, like English, Latin, French, Russian, German. Yeah, English, French, Latin, Russian, German. Yeah, 5. Those 5 languages. Not Spanish. No. My mother could understand Spanish because she knew Latin and French. And if you got those 2 down, Spanish is like a walk in the park. Central Park, that is. Anyway, so Elon Musk assembled his 7 or 8 of his buddies. All relatively independently wealthy that could donate their time. The U.S. government is not paying them 1 penny. Okay, ask some of these senators if they're willing to make a penny instead of your salary. Trump doesn't take a salary. I don't think. I don't know. I haven't actually heard this term. He's probably taken his salary to reimburse himself for all the frickin' legal fees he's had to suffer while the liberals are trying to keep him off the ballot and trying to interfere with his becoming president again, because they knew Trump was like, he's a smart cookie, I'll tell you. So for the 4 years he wasn't president, and the 4 years before he was president, he's learned how these snakes in the grass will bite you on the ankles. And the last thing they did is wanted him back in the office. He's signing executive orders every single day, Sunday included. So, Senator John Barrasso is on delayed broadcast. So the first stage of Trump's plan on how to get our economy off its back heels, since Biden has done nothing. God knows who is really president. Biden would come in and out of consciousness. People age differently, Bernie, the founding director that founded Home Depot. There's 2 of them that started Home Depot. Bernie's one of them. He's 95 years old. Sharp as a tack. He couldn't run around the building because his body is, a little broken down being 95 years old. He's not, the last time I saw him being interviewed by Cavuto, 5 months ago, he wasn't in a wheelchair per se. But he was, he had all cylinders burning between the ears. So different people age differently, particularly when it comes to cognitive capacity. Could he count backwards by 7? That's what my doctor does to me every time I show up. I says, Doc, really, do I got to count backwards by 7? First answer is 93. Do I have to keep going? That's the first test in cognitive activity. I scored 97 on my cognitive test. I missed one. So I said, Doc, which one did I miss? What do you mean I missed one? No, you trying to cheat me out of one? He said, well, you weren't really snappy when I gave you the 3 goofy words you had to remember, and I come back to it a little later. I said, I'm not good at remembering ridiculous things. Why would I waste my brain cells on 3 stupid words that are totally unrelated? Because you're going to ask me those 3 words 5 minutes later when I'm answering some other stupid question you're asking me. I'm a real, I'm not his easiest patient. I was a pre-med student, so I'm dangerous. I think I almost think I know what I'm talking about when it comes to anything medical. All I know is if I get an opinion from a doctor and it doesn't make sense, get a second opinion. That I know. And I know enough doctor friends at my age where I can get a second opinion without having to reinvent the wheel. I have a good Dr. Strasser, this world-renowned plastic surgeon and skin cancer guy. He's my skin cancer guy. Every 6 or 9 months I go in there and I show him all my little dots all over. I said, you're supposed to look me over and see if there's anything. He says, no, that's not how it works. I said, yeah, that's how it works. He says, no, that's not how it works. You got to look at all your dots. And if they start changing, that's when you want to point it out to me, and then I'll take a look. I can't look at every one of your dots. It would take me 3 weeks. So you watch all your dots on your skin, and if you see something that pops up that looks a little, just popped up, or it starts to grow irregular shape, and so I've had 2 squamous cell carcinomas. You got to get rid of those right away, because if they find them in May and they're not removed, you won't see Thanksgiving. That's 6 months and you're gone, as it metastasizes and takes over everything, and about a week before you're dead, they have you overloaded with morphine so you don't know where the hell you're at. So you don't die in pain. Anyway, so different people have different cognitive abilities as you get in your senior years. I had my 80th birthday March 20, which is a couple weeks ago. So when you get 80 and you've experienced the last 2 or 3 years where a lot of your classmates are dying off, holy crap, what's going on around here? I feel fine, so far. No, as fine as you can be. I can't run around the building 5 times. I used to be Mr. Physical Fitness. Now I'm Mr. Not so physically fit. I get along okay, but just don't ask me to, run down the hallway with a 50-pound backpack on my back. Yeah. Anyway, so Elon Musk, the reason why he got interested in Trump is because Trump made noises like, if I get elected, I'm going to help save this country for my grandchildren. And of course, that's exactly what Elon wants to hear. He wants to hear something like that because he's trying to save the planet, period. And at least for his children and grandchildren. He's trying to save the species, right? That's one of the reasons why he's trying to save our atmosphere. How about that? If you got bad atmospherics, we're going to kill ourselves as a species. That's one of the reasons he's thinking about trying to get, a good bunch of residency and ingenuity and material science and so forth onto the surface of Mars. Mars is in our solar system, and we don't know how to travel from one galaxy to the next, where it takes 200 years to get there. You can get to Mars within 5 or 6 months. You wait till the planets are and then you have to wait 2 years until you can get to Mars in 6 months again. Because the planets they're all going around the sun at different orbital velocities. And Mars is one planet further away from the sun than the Earth is. But the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide, our plants love carbon dioxide. They breathe carbon dioxide. They respire, I guess would be the right word. You got perspire and respire. So they respire because they don't have lungs. So if they're in an atmosphere that has CO2 in it, they like that. And then on the underside of the leaves, they expel oxygen. So they respire. Anyway, they breathe CO2 and they breathe out O2. O2 is what we like. So we're like the reverse. We breathe in O2 and we breathe out CO2 and water vapor. So that's one of the reasons why you have to drink a lot of fluids, because you're constantly exhaling some moisture because your lungs are moist. You breathe out and some moisture goes out. So you drink water in and you perspire through your skin cells on the surface of your body, particularly if you're running around the building or whatever. So Elon Musk said this is the only candidate that we have a chance of saving the United States, because at $34 trillion in debt, and with the interest rates, with the Fed sets the interest rates, and at like 4.25%, you multiply 4.25% times 34 trillion in debt. They're treasury bills. We sell them every Thursday at an auction. Okay, our securities, treasury bills, is like a CD in a sense. But instead of coming from your bank, it's coming from the federal government, where it says the United States government promises to pay you, let's say 4%. Well, when you multiply 4% times 34 trillion, you get like 800 billion, 900 billion. That is larger than the whole budget for the Defense Department of the United States. So when your interest payments is the largest expenditure you have, on your income and expense statement, that's not a good thing. Now, back when Trump was president, interest rates were like 0.5%. Well, 0.5% is not 4%. 4% is like 8 times 0.5%. So, interest was like, 100 billion, 125 billion. Well, now it's almost $1 trillion in interest because the last genius that was in the White House before Trump, Biden, ran up, the inflation. Plus he spent, $8 trillion, not in a smart way. So we didn't get the right return on investment. People got wealthy off of Biden's, distribution of your hard-earned tax money that you. Anyway, so that's what Elon's all about. Finally got a candidate that you have a half a chance of trying to save this country. And Trump, kind of listened to Elon. So Elon says, we really got to look into this and you really got to look into that. And, and he's found this is hard to believe. And I've checked it 3 or 4 times. And the people that found it checked it 3 or 4 times, meaning the people on Trump's Doge committee. And they're all auditors, okay? They don't have the power, when Elon says, well, we really need to get rid of, 1 million people here and there. He doesn't have the power to fire anybody. He tells the president tells the secretary of whatever. There's 16 secretaries of everything imaginable. Like Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Education, Secretary of the Interior, Secretary of the Exterior, there's 16 of them. And they're all in line to the presidency, by the way. So, Elon says, I recommend X. But he's not as articulate in wordsmithing when he's facing the media. So he's a little more of a, he's like a CEO. So he waves his hand and gives orders, and he expects everybody to jump. Well, that's what happens in his own 2 companies. But that's not what happens when he's walking around in the hallowed halls of our U.S. government. No, not at all. What he means is, sometimes unspoken words, I recommend that we do X or Y. When he's waving his hands around the Tesla company or SpaceX, he says things. He doesn't couch what I recommend. No. He says jump, and the rest of the people say, yes, sir, how high? So to speak. He doesn't have to be politically correct. He just needs to be correct as often as possible. Anyway, he wants to save our country, so he's basically, spending a lot of time in Washington, meeting with his people and meeting with whoever will talk to him in the United States government, secretary of this or that, and every once in a while with Trump. They probably speak every day, but not meeting every day necessarily. And he's not these other wealthy people, meaning they're independently wealthy, means they're worth $100 million and up. If you're worth $100 million a year, you're not worried about how you're gonna pay the grocery bills. and if the price of eggs goes up $1 a dozen, so be it. Whatever. Just get the good eggs. We don't want the cheap eggs. We want the good ones with cage-free chickens, as opposed to being locked up in these little stainless steel cages. You want to let them out twice a day out of prison. So Elon's not taking any salaries from the U.S. government, and none of these other 8 guys are. And the 90 accountants, that he's accumulated, when you're, Tesla's a big company. It's got like 140,000 employees, and on most of the continents. I think they just started in Australia. I don't think they have any factories. They do not have any factories in Australia. They've got a factory in Germany. They have a factory in China. And they have 2 factories in the United States. Fremont, California, and Austin, Texas. They're building, they have a battery factory, I think. Some kind of a battery or solar panel, maybe somewhere in New York State, I think. Buffalo area, I think. They're putting in a big server farm so that they can practice these routines for the self-driving cars, train the computers, teach the computers how to drive. With the 7 or 8 cameras, hardware version 4 equipment in the Tesla cars has like 5 megapixel cameras. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, I understand. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So this week, I understand that some of the senators are going to get... I think there's a hearing. Someone's having a hearing on daylight savings time. Just leave the clock there. Stop at this forward, back, that. Just leave it on. It's better to have the light in the evening than, you either have an extra hour in the morning or an extra hour in the evening. Give the kids a break. Let them play around a little bit after school. So the kids are practicing, baseball, football, soccer, whatever, at 7 o'clock at night, 6 o'clock at night, not in the darkness. All right? And no one is, so the old school says, well, I don't want the kids to have to walk to the bus in the dark in the morning. No one is letting their kid walk to the bus unescorted by an armed parent. Yeah, only. Yeah, there's the days of, since numbnuts let in 10 million people and not even rejecting the ones that are, MS-13 or MS-113 or, these really bad people that are coming out of Venezuela and, wherever. We've let in people from over 100 countries. Everybody wants to come here. Hey, come on here. We'll give you a cell phone. We'll give you a credit card and we'll put $1,000 in it every month. Who the hell doesn't want that? In Mozambique to come over here, hey, you get a free cell phone and you get $1,000 put in your credit card every month. And we'll cover all your medical expenses. And we'll educate you for free. You don't pay any taxes on real estate. What a deal. And, space permitting, we'll put you in a 5-star hotel. You don't pay for anything. And we'll feed you 3 meals a day. That's not a bad deal for your basic, scumbag. Or nice people. Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of nice people that want to live in the land of opportunity, except in the case of Bite Me Biden, where it is the land of Shangri-La, where you just put your hands out and we'll fill it up with, gold coins. Meanwhile, we're footing the bill. Well, we're not only footing the bill is about, twice what we can possibly tax. So guess what we got to do? We got to cut back. Just like, regular families. Stock market's down another 1,000 points, by the way, which is about 2.5%. Because, the market is tumbling. I'm switching topics here. I'll circle back. Because Wall Street, it's not sure what's going to happen with this tariff business. Well, let me remind Wall Street that 125 years ago, like the turn of the century, 1900, 1890, 1910, just take that 20-year window, we had tariffs. Tariff is a T word, like tax. We would tax. Japan, you want to bring your... Not necessarily Japan. Countries, you want to sell us, wheat. There'll be a 2% tariff if you're going to ship over the Atlantic wheat and supply our country with wheat so we can make whole wheat bread. We charge them import tax, aka tariff. Well, the tariffs that we were paid by other countries so that their products would be available to the American population 125 years ago, guess what? The tariffs paid for all our government expense and the department of this and the department of that and the Department of Defense, and making, bullets and rifles and tanks and whatever. I don't know if they had tanks. They're lucky because they didn't even have cars. In 1890 there was still horse-drawn carriages. Well, making more horse-drawn carriages. Our entire government was financed by the tariff income. There was no income tax. There was no IRS. The American worker, wealthy or not wealthy, they didn't pay an income tax. There wasn't anything called an income tax until about 1913 or something like that. Then we decided to start reducing these tariffs because, these other countries need a break. We have the land of opportunity here. We'll figure it out. There's a guy on Fox News not real happy with. Howard Ford Jr. He's like all of a sudden our resident genius on the economy and everything. Government. He ran a couple of terms as the House of Representatives person. And then couldn't get reelected. Now they bring him in as the token Democrat on the 5. And somehow or other the producers love him, and he's now on almost every show Fox has got as some kind of a fountain of wisdom. And he gives 90-second courses on what the Democrats should do, which no one listens to, by the way. And screw fair and balanced. Yeah. We need a channel that's conservative, period. I don't want to hear any of these Democrats. All they do is whine and complain on why they didn't win the election. Why didn't they win the election? Because they lied to us for 3 years on how inept Biden was. They all knew he was showing signs of dementia, or whatever the right word is for his mental state. He's tripping over things, this and that, and he can't walk straight. He's right in the middle of a conversation, takes a nap. Wait a minute. What's going on here? We want him sitting across the table from Putin? I don't think so. Putin, a former KGB guy? Oh yeah, let's put him up against Fight Me Biden. From what I'm told, and I've never met these people. Biden was not the sharpest knife in the drawer 50 years ago. He's in government his whole life. If he worked like the rest of us do, he'd probably be fired for the last 4 or 5 jobs he's had. I'm not being very kind because it's Monday morning. I'm a little cranky. Not really. I just, thank the Lord we don't have President Kamala, because she's even worse. And she's got not dementia. She's just, she's so over-controlled by her handlers. She doesn't know how to be herself. Now, maybe herself is not very attractive to, her internal thoughts about things. It's probably not attractive to most Americans, and that's why she tried to be somebody else. And guess what? It's hard enough trying to be yourself. You certainly can't know how to be someone else unless you're, a really, really great actor, actress. There are only very few people on the planet that can be very, very, very good actor or actresses. Anyway. Now we have a guy, Trump, he's a tough cookie. Yeah. I grew up in this neighborhood. A lot of unbelievable, I'm not including myself, but I came from the basic neighborhood. Same neighborhood J-Lo came from. I certainly can't sing either. Having a little sip of my hot coffee. That's warm coffee now because it was hot at 7:30. At 10 o'clock, it's about 85 degrees, not 140. Anyway. So Elon, looking at Elon right here on my screen, he's trying to save the country. So he's donating his time. He doesn't have his hand out. Give me, $1,000 an hour. No. He's out of pocket for his lunches and dinners and, glass of wine. Trump doesn't drink anything. That's fine. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. He drinks Diet Pepsis. That's where he gets his speed from. And I don't think they're caffeine free. You wonder why he can't go to sleep at night. He's drinking too many goddamn Pepsis. Or Diet Coke, whatever the hell. I don't know why I think it's Pepsi. That's the one I prefer anyway. That Coke is like drinking half carbonated syrup. Diet Pepsi has a little, crispness to it. A little extra carbonation. A little less syrupy. That's just my own personal thing. I'd rather buy a 12-pack of Pepsi's in a can than a 12-pack of Coca-Cola. Personal preference. Anyway, so Elon and his band of people are not charging the United States government anything. They're just performing an audit function. They got about 100 people. Now, the other, 8 or 10 wealthy people that are like in charge of groups. So let's just say you got 10 people managing 10 people. So that's 100. And Elon, that's 101. Rounding, a little rounding there. So, now the 100, the 90 that are working for SpaceX or Tesla, since they're both, international companies, they have offices all over the world, so they've got a few buildings full of accountants that know how to count. Not politicians that know how to count. They count one for you, one for the company, one for me. That's how your basic House of Representatives adds up. I should, there are some very nice House of Representative people that are. We knew Clay Shaw. I mean, he's a congressman I knew. Hired our daughter Robin. How marvelous is that? And she's, that was her first job. She graduated from college. Now what do I do? She was like interested in veterinary science, but did she really want to go to vet school for another couple of 3 years? So she didn't do that. She said, "Dad, you know anybody in Washington?" Answer is, well, no, but I know somebody that knows people in Washington. My banking business partner, Phil Motter. We're getting ready to buy a bank. Yeah. So we're handshaking everybody and this and that. And I said, Phil, who do you know in Washington? Oh, I know Clay Shaw. Hey, my daughter just graduated college. She's up in, just graduated from Blacksburg, Virginia Tech. Yeah, nice 35,000 student university. Perfect, dresses up in red, white, and blue. I mean, she's like, she would be a star in Clay Shaw's office and whatever the hell, if you need someone to open up the mail in the morning, she'd be the one be right by the front door, And sure as hell, they had an opening in Clay Shaw's office. Oh yeah, send her in right away. So of course, Robin, you're all set. You got an appointment Monday morning at 9:00, Clay Shaw's office, in the Hart office building, maybe something like that. They got the Rayburn building and they got the Hart office. Maybe it was the Rayburn building. It was one of, they got several buildings full of congressmen and senators. It was in the congressional office building. I remember you sit in the guest chair in Clay Shaw's office. Clay Shaw would be on the proper side of the desk, and Marilyn and I are on the other side of the desk. One day, visiting after they, like a month or two after they already hired Robin. We weren't politicking Clay Shaw or his chief of staff or whatever. She went in all by herself and had her interview, and they hired her, soon thereafter, and got her the proper security clearances to work in a congressional office, where you're, rummaging through his private mail, mail like snail mail. So she got hired in the Clay Shaw's office. She was a superstar. I mean, it was really quite funny. The chief of staff, or the lady that was in charge of all the non-attorneys that are in a congressman's office, Mary Kay McClure, I think her name was. Mary Kay corners me one time when there was like an open house in Congress, and Daddy, you got to come up and meet all the people I work with. And of course, what the heck. She lived up there. We got a couple plane tickets. Flew up there and stayed in her house in, I think, Springfield, Virginia. She was working in Clay Shaw's office, I think, at the time. So it was like 5 p.m., after they had it was like open house for the Congress. So, were a lot of friends of the congressman, family members of people that worked for the congressman. They had like wine and cheese, in every congressional office. I'm making this up a little bit. I forget how I got to know Mary Kay McClure, but she was the one that hired ramen. And she told me, she said, Mr. Wilson, she said, do you know how your daughter looked when she walked in the front door of our congressional suite? She had a deep blue suit, a sterling white blouse, and the thing around her neck with a gold, what do you call it, around the neck, was a flag scarf. If she could count backwards from 10, she was hired. She was stunning, but she's obviously a lot smarter than that. But oh my God, she was she said, I still can see her coming in the front door. I said, yeah, I know the outfit well. So they hired her, pretty much. We'll get back to you by noon. Not next month or week. Oh yeah, they wanted her. They didn't want her taking a job with somebody else. So they hired her quickly, whatever that means in government speak. And she got her security clearances after she was already, in the door, so to speak. And, so that was great. She worked, so she, and underneath the congressional office building is, and connected with one of the other, they're all connected with like tunnels underneath, and they have these, trains and big corridors that you can walk, I think the congressman sat in like a underground train situation so they could get to the White House, without going out in the weather, get there quickly. Whereas all the staff of the congressmen and senators, they had to walk these real 20-foot wide corridors, to and from and all that. But Robin she'd be having, lunch, let's say, with secretarial types, like what she was doing. She was doing secretarial, light typing, opening up the mail. I think she was in charge of opening up all the mail. And this other stunning young lady sitting across from her, handled Clay Shaw's appointment book and that kind of thing. A little more working directly with Clay Shaw rather than Robin, who's sorting all the mail for the whole congressional suite, if you will, for Clay Shaw's suite. And whatever else she did. I don't know what she did. Anyway, so when you go down to lunch, she'd be meeting all the rest of her type, because there was somebody like her in every congressional office, senatorial office. So she'd be cycling around meeting all these, the head ladies from the other office. She had a Rolodex that would choke a horse. She made friends. She was, a sweet young girl, and made a lot of friends in Washington. Now she, knows the superior court judge from, Wisconsin, and she knows, judges and generals, and, somebody was trying to hire her. I think she's got her oars in the water, so to speak, to work in cybersecurity in the Department of Defense. They always need people. She's got a master's degree in cybersecurity, of all things, from MIT and wherever. Certificates from MIT and Harvard, I think, for cybersecurity. So she's got some resume things, in cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is a big, these wars in the future will be won and lost by cybersecurity. You won't have to fire a single bullet. You'll get killed from within. That's what's going on right now with our college campuses. And where the hell do flags go? When I went to, ninth grade, you'd be back there with all the students, and then you had the teacher in the front, and to the teacher's right, to my left, there was a flag on a stanchion right there in the corner of the classroom. Every single classroom. Who the hell decided no more flags in the classroom? That's a Google item. Someone Google that and give me a response. When and who, decided in the Secretary of Education, we don't need flags in the classrooms of our students any longer. And we used to say the Pledge of Allegiance to this flag of the United States of America and to this stand. What happened to that? No more Pledge of Allegiance. Every morning, every day, you stood up, hand on your heart, Pledge Allegiance. That's not happening in our public schools anymore. It's happening in some private schools. It's not happening in public schools, I don't think. Anyway. Well, now these anti-American types are infiltrating our college campuses. And they're demonstrating. You know what? Get the hell out. You're on an educational visa. You're not going to be nice to the American way of life. Your visa is canceled. Go home. That's what we should do. We should cancel all the visas from any of these people that are demonstrating on campuses. Freedom of speech? No. That's for citizens. You don't have freedom of speech. You're going to behave yourself or you're out of here. That's the kind of kick-ass stuff we need, to survive in this world we live in today. We're going to be defeated from the inside. Our adversaries wouldn't have to fire a single bullet. We got enough scumbags that are already in our country, embedded in our society. Not to mention 10 million, who the hell knows, what their allegiance is to. It ain't to the United States of America. Yeah, they want the gold, but they don't want to, there are a lot of people that come in walk in the back door, under 10 million or so, we're told, by the border security people. They're kind of like a nonpartisan. There are people watching, these people coming in by the tens of thousands a day. Imagine 5,000 a day. Democrats are saying, "Well, we had a bill in front of Congress, and the Congress wouldn't approve it. Well, of course they wouldn't approve it. There are all kinds of interesting things in there, yeah. And Biden would get a free pass on 5,000 people a day. Well, multiply 5,000 by 365, see what you get. Yeah, times 4. You got about 10 million. He wanted a free pass on the 10 million. He wanted documented in congressional legislation that he gets a free pass on letting in 10 million, who knows who. You can do the math. I'll do the math right here in front of you. It was 5,000 a day. 5,000. That's 5,000 times 365. They're coming in Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you name it. That's 1,825,000. Okay, times 4. So they get a free pass on 7,300,000. That was this marvelous bill that the Democrats are trying to shove down the Republicans' throat. You get a free pass on 1,000,008 people a year. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. You know what the border security is right now? It's about 30 or 40 people are being arrested every day instead of 8,000. It's down to like 30. And we didn't need another law. Didn't need any new legislation. Just needed a new president. As Trump finally said, or one of his people, we don't need a new law, we just need a new president. It's real simple. Jeez. God help us. Anyway, I'm really glad that I have a way of communicating with both of you. Yeah, because I was off the internet. Oh my God. And could you believe I had to turn on VPN in order to have all my iPads, shoulder pads, my phone, my Rodecaster Duo, it connects with the internet. But nope, not my MacBook Pro. As of Friday, something went. I have a feeling that, what do you call it? The modem. There was some software that got sent to my modem. Because, periodically they call it reprovision your modem. They come up with, software improvements, and somehow or other, both MacBooks would not connect to the streaming server. They come up with some kind of I should have done a print screen on it or taken a photograph of the screen with my iPhone. Yeah. Anyway, I can just turn off the VPN. I can get that to come up. I should try that. I'm afraid I don't want. I used to be a beta tester. Saturday, I turned off I said, Marilyn, we're not beta testers anymore for Apple. I don't want anything coming in here that's not fully tested. Because, when it's working, you don't want to take the chance of having to spend. I can. There are a lot of people that are smarter than I am with VPNs and all this, technology that we're faced with today. And I don't want to have to, relearn. I've learned enough. There's Brown University, they're marching. Well, the president just turned off like $500 million in federal aid to Brown University. I only know a couple of graduates from Brown, and they're pompous asses. Jesus. I wouldn't send my kid to Brown University if they gave the education away. I don't know what it is. They collect. fair to say that, but they're camping out on the front of the campus. Are you kidding me? And all these poor Jewish students, have to step over. They won't even allow them to go to classes. How would you like that? Parents on North Shore, Long Island, just sending their kid to Brown University, right? Or NYU, or wherever. And the Hamas activists are camping out on the front lawn of the campuses. And they can't get to class. They're afraid to go to class. I don't blame them. What the hell? They get beat up. You better have your head down and don't let anyone, recognize you. They're all wearing masks, Hamas. Throw them out. Cancel the visa and get rid of them. They're lighting fires. Are you kidding me? I'm spending $100,000 a year as a parent, and my kid can't get to class? What the hell kind of an educational experience is that? Oh, yeah. No, never mind. And we're giving them money to stuff their endowment. So they got cash in the bank, and we're in debt. We're giving endowment money to these universities. These, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, or whatever. They got actual cash in their bank, and we got debt. We're borrowing money and giving it to them. No. That's not how it should be. So Trump's basically saying, guys, behave yourself. I'm warning you right now. Clear off. Stop with this. This is not free speech. This is destruction of private property and interfering with students, regardless of ethnic background, trying to get to class. How about that? That's what college education is all about. And they shouldn't have to worry about these arrogant assholes, that are camped out, all over campus. I mean, God, sheesh. If that was going on where I went to school, I'd be somewhere else. That period. End of story. Yeah, well. So these pro-Hamas activists, throw them out. At Columbia University. Cancel their visas. Say, you're on the next flight back to wherever the hell you're from. Goodbye. That's what I'd say. Anyway, we went to Flanagan's. If you live anywhere where they have Flanagan's, they have a side dish, a dish. It's called steak soup. So when they trim their steaks, they cook it up, put it in I would call it steak stew. A soup, has, some fluidity. Anyway, this steak soup, I took home a side, a takeout bowl or a takeout cup. Didn't look like an awful lot. It was like a 8-ounce container of steak soup. It's actually steak stew. When I took it out of the refrigerator last night at midnight, would you believe? After a spirited conversation with Daniel for a couple hours, which ended us talking about the Mossberg 580, whatever. What's it called? Oh my God. The Mossberg 590 Shockwave. All right, let's is there a way of looking it up? I don't know if you can. No, you can't look at it. You have to copy it and paste it. All right, let's do that. Just what the heck? It's an entertainment show, right? So we're going to copy that, and we're going to go to so now if we get Dow futures, we're talking the Dow itself. Hey, it's not futures anymore. Let's see what's going on with Tesla's down another 16 points. Here this guy's trying to help the United States government, and all the bad guys have drummed up the troops to hate Trump and to hate Elon. So they don't want to hate Trump anymore. They're hating Elon instead. He's like the the next sucker in the room, so to speak. Apple's down $11, down 6%. Tesla's down 6.7%. Nvidia's down another 7% to 87. All these Amazon and all these stocks you can see right here. If you're into stocks, I would call this buying opportunities. No one rings a bell at the bottom of the market or the top of the market. But let's hit the reload this page. Oh, that's better. That's Dow futures. Pre-market. How about markets open? Yeah, let's do that. Where are we? Oh, geez. Down another 900 points, is that right? Oh boy. Sorry, folks. Yeah, I guess so. Down another 992 points. Jeez. Uncertainty caused by all this stuff with let me tell you something about free trade real quick. Right now we don't have free trade. It's called the giveaway trade. We'll give you our markets and we'll get nothing in return. Meaning our market, our 341 million people, 280 million in round numbers, are over the age of 18. I can tell you. So I did a print screen. See if I can find it without spending too much time. So here's the first panel when last Wednesday when Trump decided on what tariff. China is charging us 67% on anything made in the United States that's going to get sold in China. In other words, they don't have a free market for us. Nope. American manufacturers, you want to make stuff, and we're going to open up all our Chinese people to the possibility of buying your goods and services. We're going to charge you a 67% tariff. That's a T word. T like tax. It's like an import tax, aka tariff. Okay? That includes currency manipulation and trade barriers. When you blend all that together, if you're an economist, you know what that footnote is right there, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. That's the tariffs being charged. Basically, our government is paying that so that the Chinese markets are open to the goods and services manufactured by the USA. You know what we're charging China? 0. But according to this new chart, we're saying, all right, we're clean and we're a gentle and forgiving country. Even though you're charging us 67%, we'll only charge you 34%. Right now they're paying 0. Our markets are totally open to everything made in China. All the little trinkets and stuff, and good stuff, bad stuff, in between stuff. We're not collecting any tariffs or import taxes. Well, it's now 34%. And China is screaming like stuck pigs. And they're going to retaliate. Well, guess what? 34, I read an article somewhere where over 80% of things that are actually sold in Walmart is made in China. 80% of the stuff that is sold on the shelves of Walmart are made in China. Well, guess what? Walmart's in for a big... I'm surprised we haven't read stories about Walmart whining and complaining about how all the... how the Chinese factories that make all the stuff that's, sold in the United States, so they're going to absorb that 34%? Maybe. Some of them may. Oh yeah, they're making a killing, so they're going to make a killing less 34%. So instead of making 100% profit, they make, 67% profit. Yep. Vietnam. Guess who's the home of Vietnamese factories that are making something that all these kids in the United States can't wait to get their hands on at $250 a pair of sneakers. They're made in Vietnam, Ever had a Nike sneakers? They're made in Vietnam. Well, they're screaming like stuck pigs because all of a sudden there's going to be a 46% tax that Vietnam is going to have to pay as a due to and due from accounts. All these countries, they have checking accounts, due to and due from accounts with the United States, as do we. Because if we're trying to sell, if Vietnam is going to open up their markets, oh yeah, our markets are open up to U.S. products, pay us a 90% tariff, and we'll allow your stuff to be on Vietnamese store shelves. Yeah, that's a free. How about that for a free market? They're charging us 90%. Well, guess what? We're going to charge you 46%. Well, guess what? The Vietnamese leadership called into President Trump and said, "How about if we bring ours to zero, will you bring yours to zero?" Why, certainly. That's what we want. Free trade. Bunch of dummies. Yeah, that's what they want. That's what we want. Free trade. We're not trying to make a profit. We just want all our American manufacturers to have the same opportunity as we're giving you guys. So if you want to assess us, and guess what? Let's just pick one, like India. All right, India, you want to get cute? And you want to raise your tariff from 52 to 75? Well, guess what? It's no longer 26%. See right in the middle there? It's 26% for India. You want to get cute with us? You don't get the discount anymore. You're going to retaliate with a 75% tariff. Your tariff is now going to be 75%. You get no discount. We're going to charge you exactly what you're charging us. Right now, we're giving you a half off price. You're charging us 52, we'll charge you 26. That's a half off. That's a sale. You want to get cute? Whatever you charge us, we're going to charge you. That's the fine print if these countries get too exercised over what's going on here. Here's the other list, starting with Peru. This is the list starting with China. I don't know what the sequence is when you go from top to bottom. This first chart, the only thing I can see is, not universally, but most of these are the big tariff countries, whereas a lot of the entries here are, it seems like they have a lot of 10%ers in here. But you got Jordan, 40%. Norway. Guess who's in Norway? Novo Nordisk. Guess who makes like billions of dollars worth of insulin that gets imported into our country? Insulin. All you people that have diabetes, your products are made in Norway. Self-included, by the way. 30% tariff on everything that gets shipped into Norway, but oh yeah, all their stuff comes in here free. No longer. Our kind and gentler country, we're going to charge you 15% on everything you're going to sell in the United States. You want to access our markets? It costs you 15% at the border today. As these ships come in, and we unload those big sealed containers of products that come from Norway, and there's $10 million worth of whatever the hell in the, we're charging you 15%. And that's a discounted reciprocal trade agreement. Except if you decide to retaliate, then there's no discount. We're going to charge you exactly what you're going to charge us. New Zealand said, forget it. We won't charge you anything. Fine, we'll both be zero. That's where it should be. Canada, we'll give up the 25% tariff we're charging your country for your made in USA products. That 25% tariff will go away immediately. If you notice, Canada is not even on this list or that list. Neither is Mexico. Apparently they have ongoing conversations to the extent where they didn't even include them on these two lists because they are a long way along in negotiating how that's going to be. Here's both lists. Anyway, this is Wednesday. Well, so the stock market is all like worried and nervous, Uncertainty is not something that people are willing to, these day traders are nervous nillies, which, that's what they do. Of course, they make money when it goes up or down. It's just, they'll buy either side of that argument. Let's see what... all right, how's the Dow doing? This is open market. Down 445 points today. And remember, it was down like 10% last week. It's back. It was still down another 1% this week. Today, who knows where it's going to end up. They need to relax. Things will be... You guys will wake up and find out things will be better. I'm looking for TD. Let's see if I get anything on TD Ameritrade. Yeah, welcome to Schwab. Yeah, I remember having to do that. Open an account. I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, they're not going to tell you anything. So I was afraid of that. There's my my former TD Ameritrade. Yeah, they're gone. Anyway, so at the end of the day, pre-market trading was down like 900. It looks like, it's back to good, minus 400, which is 1%, which, 0.25%, 0.5% up and down. That's the way the stock markets are supposed to fluctuate. But, it gets down over 1%, 400, down 400 when it's 40,000. Remember, it's not 6,000, it's 40,000 down. It's double what it was. NASDAQ is actually up 15 points. But it got hammered last week, so, it doesn't go down forever. Sooner or later, these investors are going to say, hey, everybody, calm down. So maybe that's what's happening. Anyway, circling back to Flanagan's, I got a takeout order of steak, what they call steak soup. Comes in like an 8-ounce cup. I guess you can order a bowl or a cup. I got a cup. I hope the cup isn't the bowl, or else I got. Anyway, it's really, when you refrigerate it, it's in the refrigerator for 4 or 5 hours. It's like you turn it upside down. Nothing. It's like totally frozen over with protein. It's like steak soup Jello, but really thick. It's like steak stew. I would call that a stew. Anyway, when it refrigerates, it is so, there's so much dissolved protein in there. So I warmed it up, and I had some I boiled up some parboiled fettuccine noodles. So I poured that steak soup all over a nice big container of parboiled fettuccine noodles. So now I have, the makings of beef stroganoff. I think, the Dow is down 150. So the Dow is actually coming back to only minus 130 right now. Minus 115 now. So it's coming back. Minus 97 now. So it's coming back. Yeah, good. I guess everyone is settling down. They've had the whole weekend to read Barron's and all this stuff and say, hey guys, calm the hell down, will you? You're making everybody nervous. The country's going to be, they're 50, I heard over the weekend, there are 50 countries that have already called the White House saying, let's make a deal. If I got a deal for you, forget it, we're not going to charge 10% tariff to the United States. Oh no, let's bring it to zero. You bring to zero, I bring to zero. That's the conversations they're having with the White House right now. Now, between those two lists, there are probably 100 countries that are assessing us tariffs. Or 80. I mean, I didn't count them actually. Let's go back to that. Terrible pay. There it is. Let's see. 5. So they're like there are 25 on each page. So there are 50 countries. So almost every country on these two lists have called in to the United States Office of the Executive Offices over the weekend and so forth, saying, hey, let's see, can we talk about this? So obviously Singapore, why would they charge us for 10% and we charge you 10%? Just bring it both down to zero. Now that's equal trade, just bring them both down to zero. Why are we, making ourselves crazy here? Bangladesh, they're charging us 74%. Well, lots of luck. We're going to charge you 37%. Whatever the hell we're bringing in from Bangladesh, South Africa, United Kingdom, they've got a hold of us. All right, we'll go to zero. See, a lot of these countries don't want to go to zero because they're financing their government off our companies' backs. South Korea, oh God, Samsung, all the TVs and crap they're sending, it's good stuff. I have a huge 85-inch Samsung TV. It's magnificent. Guess where it comes from? South Korea. They're making a lot of cars. Kia? Ever hear of that? South Korea. Right now they have free access to our markets, meaning our 277 million people that are over the age of 18. Okay? I have a report somewhere in my little list of things. Let me see if I can find it. Since I've mentioned it 9 times already. I know what it looks like. There it is. Estimates of the total resident population of 18 years old or older as of July 2024, produced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics or some government agency. I don't have a footnote on that, but it's a government number. 340,110,000 people, rounded down. 266,900,000. 78% of our population is over the age, is 18 or older, meaning voting age. That's kind of a disgusting number. 267 million. There are only 150 million that voted. That means 100 million. So 150 million voted and 100 stayed home. How the hell do you stay home? What are you, brain dead? You can't get off the goddamn couch and go vote? It takes 5 minutes. You can call somebody and get a ride. One of my best friends on the planet, he passed away a while ago. Name is Dick Yace. Richard C. Yace, Y-A-C-E. I spent thousands of hours with this guy. He was the world's best real estate banker. I mean, really. One of the best in the whole country. I hung around him like white on rice. I was like a dry sponge. He had something to say. I wanted to hear it. And we'd argue back and forth all night long. We'd be on his back patio Friday night, sipping white wine, whatever. Marilyn would go home. We're right across the street. She'd go home at like midnight. I'm still there until like 6 in the morning. And it's just some little shit riding a bicycle, throwing today's newspaper on the driveway. I said, what, are we on tomorrow already? I'm still on yesterday. I was there, almost every, Friday night, Saturday night, if we didn't have something going on. I'd be over there with Linda and Dick, and Marilyn and I'd go over there and have a sip of wine. Kids would be slapping around in the pool. We'd feed them something, get takeout pizzas. And, just... So Dick was a history major. I was, I had an excuse. I was trained as a scientist. I was a pre-med student and all this stuff. Biochemistry, physical chemistry, physics, math minor, biology major, and a chemistry major. Who the hell is a chemistry major? Hey, I liked it, Somebody had to like it. Anyway, but Dick was a history major. He knew all about all this stuff, which I don't know what I'm talking about with politics and why these people decide what they decide. So now it's election day, whatever year, we're talking Coral Springs, we're talking 1976, 7, 8, 9, November, whatever comes up, it's time to vote. I got my I voted sticker. I said, "Where's your I voted sticker?" Well, yeah. I said, "I'll take you right now. Let's go vote. Polls are open until 7. It's 6. Let's go." I couldn't get him to get off the couch, put his shoes on to go vote. I said, "Are you kidding me?" I've never been in his back patio when it was an election cycle. I said, "Really? You're too lazy to get off the frickin' couch to go vote, and you got all this genius stuff coming out of your mouth about American history, and you're too lazy to vote? Are you serious? Get your ass up, put your shoes on. I will drive you to the polling. It'll take you 5 minutes. We can bullshit our way over the, it's 5 minutes away. You 5 minutes in, 5 minutes back home, 15 minutes from now, we'll go make ourselves another vodka soda, whatever." He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't go vote. And I lost. I said, "Dick, I hate to say this. I've lost total faith in your bullshit because you're all talk, no action. You're a lazy son of a bitch. You're not going to go vote. Everybody that's in the armed services is dying so you have the right to vote, and you're too lazy to vote." Well, guess what? Looking at these numbers right here, there's over 100 million Americans that are just like Dick Yates. They're too lazy to get off the goddamn couch and go vote. Now, what Trump did, which I thought was a pretty smart move, is to help get some people, their fat asses, off the couch to go vote. He said, "No more tax on Social Security. You worked your whole life, put your money to build up so you get Social Security. The last thing we're going to do is take 20% of it back and put it. No, we're not going to tax Social Security benefits ever again. Those days are over. As soon as I get in office. No tax on tips. You've heard of that. No tax on Social Security. And no tax on overtime." Now, if that doesn't get some people off the couch, there's supposedly 65 million people getting Social Security benefits. Now they won't be taxed. If that don't get, whew, jeez. I get $3,000 a month in Social Security benefit. $3,000. Okay. Yeah, that's 3 times. It's almost 3,000 to the dollar. I mean, it's like 3,000. $3,001 or something. This is close to 3,000. They got this formula, which I'm a math guy, right? I can't figure it out. I'm sure they can't figure it out either. But it's $3,000. 3 times 12 is $36,000 a year. Now it's not going to be part of my taxable income. That's important. Of course, I was going to get off the couch anyway. But if that, for people that were maybe wondering whether to vote for him or not, are you kidding me? She wants all the tax money she can get out of your sorry asses, and he's going to not charge your Social Security income. And what's going to finance that? Those charts. See, that was March 29. Just so I can find that chart again. That was the end of March. So here's what these are cases Nationwide injunctions issued by federal district courts. This is a Harvard Law Review article. Look at Trump. He's at 64. Recent federal injunctions. Obama had 12 in his whole 8 years. Trump has been in office 4 years and 40 days. It's at 64. Biden 14. Oh, I guess it's 64 in his first term, and already is at 15 in the first 10 weeks. Oh boy. Yeah, see that? The Supreme Court's got to get in there and say, no. Federal district courts are not supposed to be conducting foreign policy. I don't think that's the purpose of a federal district court. Yeah. If your district is the Southern District of New York State, all your rulings are for the Southern District of New York State, not international matters. So I think the Supreme Court's got to decide something like that. I think. And I can write a book, but I do not know about what I just said. There you go. What else is exciting about the world's most advanced microchip has been unveiled by TSMC. That's a Taiwanese manufacturer that has agreed to open up, I believe it is, several $1 billion worth of plants in the United States, so that they can manufacture their chips here, in addition to Taiwan. That's the kind of deals Trump is making right now. Apple has agreed to build and pay for $500 billion. That's a $500 billion worth of manufacturing facilities in the United States instead of China. Not instead of China, in addition to China. Because China, they may get goofy. Well, if they get goofy, our entire cell industry goes in the toilet because half the stuff's made in China. More than half the stuff is made in China. We try to make a deal with Ukraine. Here is a Ukrainian mine. You see how they're scooping up stuff with these big cranes and piling it up around there. And this pile of right here, little I know about mining, I know a few things. But, so they pile it up like that so that it basically dries out. Well, you see, because there's a big puddle of water in there. So you dig it out. This crane moves around over this way, piles it in a pile. Now they'll make another pile over on this side after a while. And then they have these big, like this truck right over here in the background. See that big truck? That's a big truck. That looks like a little toy truck. It's big. You could put your house would be in the back end of that truck. So he comes riding around there, and they load it on there, and they take it to a plant that sifts out, a huge, what Ukraine is sitting on? One of the world's largest supplies of titanium. Titanium dioxide is something that gets mined. If I remember my days of chemistry, titanium. Ukraine has several of the world's largest supplies of titanium and other, including, lithium. Hello, lithium. Lithium-ion batteries. Remember that? Guess who's got a lot of lithium? Ukraine. So we've supplied Ukraine with 300 billion with a B, 350 billion worth of approvals through Congress. We funded them like 150 billion, half of it, because Biden wouldn't give these guys, Ukrainians, enough weapons, munitions, bullets, missiles to win the war. They just gave enough to keep them in it. Oh yeah, Democrats like to keep you in the war. They don't really give a shit. They don't, pardon the expression, they don't care who wins necessarily. So they just give you enough to get you by, because we don't want to upset Russia. Oh hell no, no. We wouldn't want to get Putin all exercised against the United States. So we'll hold back those F-16s for a while. They wouldn't give them any. It takes 6 months to train the pilots. What the hell is? So for 9 months they wouldn't give them any. 10 months they wouldn't give them any F-16s. You need spare parts. You need training. It's 2 or 3 months to teach these pilots. And you have to have Ukrainian language on the buttons. Like start the engines. Oh boy. Yeah, anyway, so. That's Ukraine will send a team to the U.S. next week for talks about, the new draft of minerals deal. Yeah. Trump is going to say, take this new draft and stick it up your, what. The deal is what we made. It's not open to any further negotiations. This guy, he was a stand-up comedian. Now he's like president of Ukraine. And all of a sudden, he's going to go toe-to-toe with Trump. Trump's going to say, get the hell out of here. Have a nice life. I wish you well. You go ahead and fight Russia, and you burn off. You won't have anybody under the age of 30. They'll all be dead. Russia will burn through them. They'll grind you down to nothing. They'll fight you for the next 20 years, and your country will be totally horizontal. They'll bomb every building you got. And God knows, and you probably have 20 million of our taxpayers' cash buried in some Swiss bank somewhere. They can't find a lot of our money. They don't want to submit themselves to audit. Well, I guess you know what that means? These friggin' politicians have it in their pockets. They took lessons from Nancy Pelosi. But, there are a lot of Ukrainian dead people. These loyal young men and women are fighting to preserve their country. And Zelensky is getting cute with our president. Yeah, well, you can get cute. You picked on the wrong guy to get cute with, because Trump ain't going to put up with your bullshit. He's going to say, get out of here. I sent you home when you first showed up, because you were getting, you were smart talking me for an hour in front of the news media. You want to smart talk me behind closed doors? Fine. You can tie your hands behind your back and we can go butt heads for a couple hours. We can do that too if you want. But not in front of the media. So you're one-upping me in front of the media? Fine. Go home. Your dinner is canceled. And the lunch is going to the staff, so you can leave the White House like right now. Like immediately. It's like 3 in the afternoon. They had lunch all set up in the hallway. They're getting ready to bring it into the conference room. And they chase out the media, and then they'd have a nice luncheon. I said, no, you're not having lunch. So Trump walked out of this place, and he told the staff, he said, get them out of here now. They're not having lunch. And he did. They sent him home. And dinner's canceled. We're not having any more conversations with Zelensky and his folks. Send them back home. And that's what he did. So now Zelensky's getting cute again. Zelensky wants to redo the mineral deal. Yeah, you can redo it up your ass. You ain't redoing squat. Matter of fact, we're going to take. So Trump figures, what the hell? We got 350 billion in committed. You got half that money. Well, we're going to make ourselves. We're getting repaid by minerals. We need minerals. You have minerals. You need money. We give you money. You give us minerals. That's the deal. So at least, all this stuff with Iraq, all that stuff. We never took any of their oil. What, are you kidding me? We engineered the entire piping to get the crap out of the ground, and we should have taken that oil. Not taken it, just we pay you $5 a barrel. It costs $5 a barrel to pull it out of the ground. Fine. We'll pay you $6 a barrel, not 60. 6. Yeah, it's a better deal. But we saved your asses. Remember? Saddam Hussein? We took him out and everybody's gone. And he set all the wells on fire. We had to bring our guys over from Texas to put the fires out because you guys didn't know how to do it. And we'll pay you for it. $6 a barrel. A barrel is 55 gallons, in case you're wondering how big a barrel is. It's 55-gallon drums. 55 gallons. It's what the mob uses. They cut your body in half and put you in a 55-gallon drum. And then fill it up with a bunch of rocks and drop it in the Atlantic somewhere. Or put you underneath the foundation from some new stadium. Yeah, he's in the end zone. Yeah, the end zone. All right, folks. It's 11:20 a.m. We got into titanium. I bet you didn't know. that Ukraine had titanium. Yeah. Yeah, there's numbnuts judge there trying to block Trump's... Oh, yeah, we don't want to deport. This liberal judge doesn't want to deport these poor, innocent scumbags from Venezuela, right? Really? And the Democrats are all lining up. Oh, yeah, oh, my God. They have freedom of speech. Bullshit. They don't have freedom of squat. Get them out of here. They don't have papers. They don't have visas because they don't have papers. So out. They've broken federal law. They're subject to deportation. They don't get a hearing, schmearing. Put them on a plane and deport them. Guess who can decide that? Secretary of State, Rubio. He can cancel all the educational visas. They don't get a hearing. Their visas are canceled. Goodbye. Anyway, it's 11:21. I actually don't know what I'm talking about. What I just said. I think I'm close to what the talking heads are telling me over the weekend. And I've been talking for 2 hours and 10 minutes and 19 seconds. And it's time for me to have some of my beef stroganoff. Remember that? Yeah. Flanagan's steak soup, which is actually steak stew. I mixed it with about 2 ounces of distilled water to not alter the flavor. Warmed it up in the microwave for about a minute, and I poured it all over 2 big fistfuls of fettuccine noodles, cooked al dente. And guess what I'm going to have? I'm going to have an early lunch. As soon as I can close out this conversation, which is happening like ex post facto. So quick. I'm using... I got shut out of the internet for a couple of days, and I'm having microphone withdrawal symptoms. And you hear Epidemic Sound Instrumental, right, in the background? You hear that right there? Kind of like that. It's like we're at, the local donut shop having a little coffee. You say a few things, I say a few things, And, so a couple hours is enough. Now it's time to, take care of several chores. And, I'm going to put my beef stroganoff in the microwave for about 2.5 minutes. Get that all warm and toasty. And have a little lunch. Take my morning pills, which I haven't had yet. I'm supposed to take at 8 a.m. and it's now 11. I need to take them because my feet are falling asleep because I haven't had my Lyrica or my pregabalin. All right. Titanium is mined in Ukraine. We're trading the lion's share of that $350 billion we've committed to these dummies, political dummies, the ones that are running the country, and their president is a former stand-up comedian. Oh yeah, that's great. No one else will take the job. And so all of a sudden, this little sort of hot dog decides he's going to tell our commander-in-chief what's going to happen. I don't think so. You ain't telling Trump squat. If I cancel his trip, he's not even getting back in here. Send me a tweet on Truth Social. You ain't getting in my White House again. Unless you're going to sign on the dotted line and kiss my ring. And unless you're willing to behave yourself, I won't even have you kiss the ring. Just behave yourself. You don't behave yourself? Stay home. Fine, wipe out a whole generation of young men and ladies. Because Putin will wear you down to nothing. He doesn't care. What the hell? He's a dictator. You just grind you down. You ever hear of the 14-year war? You don't win against Russia unless you... The only way you win against Russia is you have, an incredible way of just wiping him out. And that's what he's afraid about. He's worried about Trump. He knows he's a tough cookie to control. Well, that's a good thing. We want Putin to be afraid of Trump. That'll be the best deal we'll get, is when he's afraid of somebody that's in charge of our, commander-in-chief. Iraq started to get cute with us. And they had the Houthis and the Tutsis and the, these people that, put together the assault on our Pentagon and World Trade Center. 3 airplanes sent 3 different directions to wipe out, the leadership in our country. And one was set out to go to the White House. Didn't happen, fortunately. Some passengers stormed the cockpit and the plane ditched in Pennsylvania somewhere on its way to the Capitol or the White House. I think we know for sure, but I don't know for sure. It was one of them. They had like a little booklet attached to the yoke in the airplane in the cockpit. They found the cockpit in the roof of an adjacent building because the cockpit went right through the whole 67th floor. The cage of the cockpit, everything was frosted except for there's a little card of, that had a picture of either the Capitol or the White House. I think it was the Capitol building. They're going to wipe out our Congress with a jet airplane, just crash it right into the roof of the congressional building there, and we'll wipe it out. That's what they tried to do to the Pentagon. They just They should have flown it into the middle of the Pentagon, not the sidewall. Then they would have taken out our Secretary of Defense. Rumsfeld, maybe? He'd have been gone. Okay. Goodbye. Talk to you tomorrow. About 8:15, assuming I think I can get on the internet now that I figured out that the VPN is my workaround for whatever happened on April 4th. That may be not capable of getting to the streaming server, which this is a simulcast, remember? Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, all three simultaneously being broadcast right this very second. All right. But you only got about 45 seconds to go because I'm turning off the microphone. I'm going down to 0 on this. And I'm going to turn up Epidemic full throttle. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.